First item of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sheet, no spotlight, right? No spotlight tonight. Okay.
4 or 5 years.
Okay, next item on the agenda is public comments. Mr. Kasimis.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out. Public comment section. When I call your name, please come up to the podium. Give us your name and address for the record. At that time, you'll have 3 minutes. When there's 30 seconds left, I will give you a little high sign to help you start closing up. And at 3 minutes, I just hope that you close. We ask that you keep your comments civil and to the point. You know, we've done this before. So, first one up is Diego Cabrera.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Diego Cabrera, United States Navy veteran, 3 East Meadow Lane, Norwalk.
Thank you.
For the past 3 years, for the past time at Jefferson as a custodian, and recently I've been reassigned to another school, and I'm totally against outsource and prioritize our schools. My major concern is with the safeties of the kids. You know, we take chances, yes, but not really. You know, and a clean school and a safe school is a healthy environment for our kids. That's all I say.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Mr. John Mosby.
Good afternoon, board. My name is John Mosby, 15 Addison Avenue, South Norwalk, Connecticut. I'm going to be very brief tonight. One of my concerns is I would like to bring to the attention of the board that I filed 2 citizen complaints for the board to hear my complaint. The first one, they didn't hear it, and then I got a call this morning from the superintendent told me that the board said they didn't want to hear my complaint, said because it dealt with employment. Now, I want to say to the Board of Education, everybody know me for many years. Now, I always been out straightforward. The fact is that in that newspaper they put down, say Mr. Mosby say that he worked for the board was total false. And yesterday I went to the Human Rights Commission. I want the record to be set straight. He said, the man told me, say, Mr. Mosby, we do y'all, when you go, they do an intake. He said, I made an error. Say, I put in there, said, I apologize to you. And he said, you have the bold to call me. Say, I made the error. You didn't make the error. I didn't say about no employment. And I had the Corporation Council and all of them jumping all in the paper lying on me. And he said, today, say, you do a new report. I file on the public accommodation. And I file a new complaint. And he said, if they jump me about it, he said, I made the error. So that's the way they do. Now, the board policy makes it very clear that the citizen got a right to hear our complaint. Read it. Also, the policies say that the Corporation Council don't have no business come over here doing the board thing, on advise the board of the leak and all those things. But for some reason, they keeping the Corporation Council right down on me. And on also the other minority communities, they always get the corporation go after minority blacks, and I seen it. Another lady, he was on them. But the other people, when they file a complaint, the board used our lawyer. That is discrimination. And I want to say to you all, I'm going to fight it. I'm not going to back off because I'm standing for what is right. Finally, I want to say, I want to support those custodians. I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm going to say to the public, they know I'm a contract man. That contract was rigged. It was rigged by some staff. We done a little research. That contract was rigged. And some of you bold know it's rigged. But it'll come out. But we got good lawyers. We got some lawyers. We done had some good lawyers. It will come out in them here under oath. If you lie on the oath, you're going to be in trouble. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mosby. Okay, next we have Ms. Brenda Penn Williams.
Good evening, board members. My name is Brenda Penn Williams. I reside at 21 Karen Drive, Norwalk, and I'm here on behalf of the NAACP, and I would like to read a letter from I would like to read a letter to put it on record, okay? And it's addressed to Michael Lyons, Board of Education Chair, 5 Raymond Lane, Norwalk, Connecticut, 06855. Dear Mr. Lyons, the Norwalk branch of the NAACP Legal Redress Committee is in receipt of a complaint made by Shirley Mosby regarding the treatment of the majority of African American and Hispanic female board members, elected officials currently serving on the Norwalk Public School Boards of Education. She alleges the African American and the Hispanic board members are subject to continual intimidation, harassment, disrespect, exclusion, discrimination, lack of transparency, and not being informed and subject to disparate treatment. In order to thoroughly investigate this complaint, we need to meet with you. Please let me know when you are available to meet regarding these allegations. Please send your response within 7 days, Brenda Penn Williams at brenpenw@aol.com. Also, I can be reached at 203-852-8995. Thank you for your concern in this matter. Sincerely, Brenda Penn Williams, Andre Williams, NAACP, Legal Redress Committee. Copies went to Darnell Crossland, President of the Norwalk NAACP Norwalk Branch, Scott X. Esdell, President of the NAACP, Connecticut State, Honorable Harry Reeland, Mayor of Norwalk. And as of today, we have not heard anything. Now, tomorrow will be the 7th day. So I just want this to be put on record. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Mr. Andre Williams.
Good evening, board members. Andre Williams, 118 West Cedar, unit number 5. I'm here tonight representing the NAACP also, and would like to say that we are looking forward to hearing from Mr. Lyons. We're hoping he will respond to our letter because there's some things that we really need to address so that this board can function properly. According to the city charter, it's a 9-member board. So if all the members are not being informed properly, are not giving the right time to respond, or given proper time to address certain things that eventually will affect our kids, we don't think the boards function properly. So like I said, according to the city charter, it's a 9-member board that should function as one. And we're here tonight. We will be coming back, and we will have a daily presence here at the board. Hopefully we can work together to get these initiatives in place, and we will definitely be coming back to follow through to make sure that going forward, the board functions as a full member of our panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Yolanda Skinner.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, board. My name is Yolanda Skinner, and I am the health chair for the Norwalk branch of the NAACP. And I attended...
I'm sorry, I need your address.
Oh, my address is 27 Ascension Avenue.
Thank you.
Apartment 1. I attended a Board of Education meeting on Tuesday, June 17th from 8:30 until 10:30 p.m. I witnessed how important issues were cunningly last-minute items on the agenda. For example, the reorganization and promotion of those at the main office. The report was presented by Dr. Rivera for hiring and promotions by which members of the board approved without seeing salaries or who would be hired or promoted. I witnessed Discourteous body language. I am in sales, and body language is important. I can tell you who's going to buy in about 1.3 seconds. And so the body language, the pitch, and the tones that were used towards Ms. Mosby, Ms. Rivas, and Ms. Murray was really disheartening. It made me want to jump down from up there where Bruce Morris is right now. Some members of the Board of Education's board, I feel, must be retrained in diversity, inclusion, and teamwork. And if I can lastly add, Dr. Rivera, you and I sat together at the YMCA Leadership Breakfast. I don't know if you remember that. And I sent you a kind little note afterwards. We talked about bringing Dr. Jeffrey Canada to Norwalk, and I think that we should really work on that. I think that it would encourage our community and also bring about a little bit of change. So let's you and I truly get together on that, and let's make that happen. I think that bringing Dr. Jeffrey Canada here would just be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Mr. Darnell Crossland.
Good evening. Just for the record, my address is 25 Grand Street. That's Norwalk, Connecticut.
Your name too, just so the record.
Darnell Crossland.
Thank you.
President of the NAACP. A couple things. One, I thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak here tonight directly to everyone. The faces are familiar, and I'm sure my face is familiar. We work closely in the community with each other on many different things, and we see each other at different events. The job that you guys have to do are important, and we also have important jobs to do. And tonight was our NAACP general meeting, and we cut that short to be here tonight because of some pressing issues. But all things being equal, normally we leave the Board of Education up to you guys, and we take care of the things that we have to take care of so that the community as a whole could accomplish what it needs to. The NAACP supports the efforts to ensure that all of the children of Norwalk receive a quality education. We think that's the basic of our civil rights. And in fact, we think it's one of the most important civil rights that we have is to make sure that kids have a quality education. And before coming here, I went on the Office of Civil Rights website, and to echo the point that I'm making, their website says the mission of the Office for Civil Rights is to ensure equal access to education and to promote educational excellence throughout the nation through vigorous enforcement of civil rights. So not only do we feel at the Norwalk branch and NAACP that education is one of the most important civil rights that we have, that the Office of Civil Rights feels the same. And I think the reason why I make that point is because you're probably wondering why is the branch here. Well, the branch is here because the work that we otherwise would have been doing tonight is to make sure that the entire community has the utmost opportunity to have fair education and a fair civil rights opportunity. The letter that was read into the record tonight outlines something that's totally opposite of that. In order for us to have quality education for all our kids, we have to know that the board has an equal opportunity to be heard and their voices to be considered. What's been brought to my attention is that there's a 9-member board, and Ms. Mosby has made it quite clear that some of the members of the board are being excluded from key decision-making processes. To be more specific, if in fact there's going to be a vote about something, I think it's very important for the information that pertains to that vote to be disseminated timely and to all of the board members. What's been brought to my attention is that the information is not being disseminated timely. What's been brought to my attention is that there are meetings that happen outside. Is that 1 minute?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. There are meetings outside of the general body. And what that does is it causes those members to have to either abstain or be uninformed in their vote. So we're asking that the chair consider a motion to allow us to meet and discuss a better inclusion to protect the entire community and to allow the entire board to be engaged. So if you can get back to us with a proposed meeting time or place, we'd like to meet with you to discuss these issues.
Thank you. Okay, that's all that's signed up, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
All yours.
Next item is Superintendent's Report. Dr. Rivera.
Sure. I have a presentation that I'd like to make tonight.
One person only. Go ahead.
Please forgive me being late. My time to sign up. Angela Harrison, 7 Sable Street. I just wanted to say that everyone sitting up here was voted in by the people. And I think it's important for those that were voted in to realize that you are working for the same people that voted you in. And even when it seems as though, when we know that certain policies have been working against our community, and there seems to be no change in sight, and every time you try to bring these issues up, they get voted down because of the majority rules, that there are other options that we have as a community. This is not the all in all, and people can only do what we allow them to do. So I just wanted to put it out there that in order to work for the people that voted you in, sometimes we got to go back to the rules and regulations. We need to go to the laws and the bylaws, the federal laws, the state laws, and because this board can still be held accountable for the decisions that it's made, we have in black and white all kind of information of how it has been affecting us not in the best way for our community. So I would suggest as the board members, and you got it voted in by the people, that you start pulling some of this information and use it to your ability. Because even though you get voted down and it's very discouraging, you're trying your best to change policies that we know have ruined some of our children's lives. So my point being is that they can be held accountable. They're not the all in all, they don't have the final word. They only because now when we unify and get what we have to get done and begin to study the rules, the laws, the statutes, the codes, something can get done. So if they have to lose being a board, if Norwalk has to lose even having a board, if that's the way that we're going to be able to bring the attention to help our kids with codes and policies that they have that is making them quit school, now don't even feel a part of, they don't want to be a part of it, that we have the power to change that. I'm so glad to see everyone here tonight. It is a blessing. 30 seconds. It is a blessing to have everyone here, so I just want people to know that I'm encouraged. We can change whatever we want. It's not the all in all, and stay encouraged, and we can get together and pull up some rules and regulations and hold them accountable because we know their policies are not working for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll have the superintendent's report.
Okay, first, I have one announcement, and then I'm going to move to a presentation that both Tony Ditrio and I will make regarding an initiative that we are jointly working on to improve the quality of instruction in our schools. The announcement that I want to make, as you know, Ms. Skinner, you mentioned Jeffrey Canada. Jeffrey is a very popular national and international figure. He's known around the world. He's in huge demand for his time. At the same time, Jeffrey Canada is a wonderfully good, genuine person. And he's been a personal friend of mine for 40 years. And I took the train last Thursday and I met with him in New York, in his office. And Jeffrey's coming to Norwalk. Jeffrey's going to join me in our convocation speech and address all staff. I'm really looking forward to his visit and hopefully his continued support as we go forward. So I just wanted to share that with you since you brought his name up tonight. I'd like to now go ahead and make a presentation.
Please do.
really what I want to do here is introduce, in a long-winded way, through about 10 or 15 minutes, a presentation that Tony Ditrio is going to come up and join me in as we go forward. We had a major administrators meeting, all of our administrators, last week, and we went through and shared the goals that you as a board had embraced, our mission, our commitment to closing the achievement gap, and areas that we know we needed to address around creating more of a culture of accountability, building knowledge and skills. And I'm not going to go through it. You've seen this several times. But what I do wanted to say was there are a number of assumptions that are in place that we have to have in place as an organization. Clearly, you had a major vote that we made back on with our K-5 literacy program. We spent a lot of time talking about the pros and cons. Eventually, there was a vote. There are new programs that are underway, the P-TECH program at Norwalk High, the IB program, which is in design and development at Brian McMahon, trying to expand after-school programs. Student progress monitoring. We know we have to do a better job. It was part of the K-5 literacy presentation that we made in terms of monitoring how our students are doing. We know what the assessments are. We've got to focus on making sure that all of our kids are on track for grade 3, that if we're really going to close the achievement gap, that's what we have to do. And we also have to tackle grade 9. Grade 9 is a critical year, and we've got to make certain that we're tracking each and every student to make sure they're ready for grade 10. School safety has been a priority. There's no question about that. We've approved more than $1.5 million, close to $2 million in renovations to our schools. There are a number of other initiatives we've been working on. Briggs High School, personalizing learning, our library redesign, changing our master schedules, and putting in place an organization structure that holds people accountable. What are the standards that we have for our principals, our leadership standards, and for our teachers? What are our school improvement and governance teams working on? How can we make sure we have those basic structures and systems in place? Facilities, we're tackling that. We're building, we've got landscaping services under contract for our schools, a major study of all of our facilities. We're looking at the potential of a new pre-K center, and ultimately this is obviously going to have to be processed carefully, but whether we stay at Briggs or find a new home for Briggs, I think we have to address the facilities. Budget and finance, we're starting with our budget development teams that we have in place. We've got to address some equity concerns that people have raised, and we already have teams that are working now to prepare for the 2015-2016 budget. Here's the 3 priorities that we have to zero in on. I put assumptions because these are things that have to happen. This is like the foundation of a house. You got to have standards in place. You got to have better systems. You've got to have a curriculum and tools that teachers can use. You got to have the right kind of training. But what's going to distinguish Norwalk from every other district? What's going to distinguish us is our ability to make sure that each and every child in our school, regardless of their economic circumstances or the color of the skin or the language that they speak, are doing well and meeting high standards. That's what's going to distinguish our city. But I got to get the pieces in place. I have to have the foundation in place. That's why we went through the process of putting our strategic plan together and working to get these other pieces together. So the question is, number 1 is our culture, district and school culture. And 1, we have to work around some key values of collaboration, working together, working with our unions, working with our teachers, all of us working together. We've got to create more an environment of respect. Respect for adults and respect for students. I've talked about having a can-do, will-do environment. That's what we have to have, and act professionally. It's not personal, this is professional, but at the same time personal in connection with students, knowing our students well. Jeffrey Canada at the Harlem Children's Zone talks about doing whatever it takes. And you know what? The same concept is what they're using in the P-TECH program at Brooklyn that we talked about. They get their kids coming in there and they say, you're going to college and we're going to do whatever it takes. And that's what they do. They go summer school, they go after school, they go Saturdays.
Teachers stay late, they do what they have to do, they do whatever it takes. It's got to be standards driven. We've got to have clear standards. Otherwise, how can you hold anyone accountable? If you have principals that you go to meet with or teachers and you have a discussion, what are you going to have a discussion about? This discussion ought to be about what are the expectations for us as adults. We got to be accountable and we got to be student-centered. That is a key priority for us that we are going to address. Related to this, keenly related, is student engagement. That's what's going to distinguish us. The work that happens, and I've said this before, the quality of the interaction between teachers and students and how we follow up on students and how we engage students is critical. And I attended, very fortunately, I attended a workshop in San Antonio during the February break, and I went with Mr. Ditrio, I went with Paul Krasnovich, I went with Aileen Lemondola, and we spent 2 to 3 days in this workshop, and it was zeroing in on student engagement. And I walked away from there saying, that's how you operationalize this. It's one thing to say it at 10,000 feet. It's another thing to do it. And you have to work with your staff in ways that really get at the kind of meaningful change that you want to see in schools and in classrooms. So we can have the standards in place. Student engagement is going to be a critical focus of the organization along with our culture. And by way of introducing student engagement, and Tony, it zeroes in on what are we talking about with student engagement? What do we mean when we say create a growth mindset? When I talk about the quality of interaction between teachers and students, I'm talking about feedback, quality feedback. And teachers need real practical information. And that's what Tony's going to share with you tonight. Relationships, strong relationships. What does that look like? What does that mean? And cognitive skill building. And finally, before I get into Tony's, the third priority is clearly going to be monitoring. Monitoring our student progress at grade 3 and grade 9. New roles and protocols for these teams at the sites and a site monitoring system in place. I'm not going to go through the details. I went through some of this before. But we intend to be spending more time in the field. This is something that I shared with you as part of the organizational presentation. Meeting with staff, meeting with principals, reviewing data on student progress, reviewing and discussing intervention strategies, meeting with housemasters, counselors, teachers where needed, observing student progress and intervention teams, and then the follow-up's got to be real and it's got to be tracked. These are the kinds of systems we have to have in place. At this point, I'd like to now change the focus from kind of the overview to what it's going to look like and what it's going to mean for 5 schools that we have targeted, which are our 5 Title I schools. And Mr. Ditrio, I'm going to pull you up right here. There you go.
Good evening. This all started for me just about a year ago. I went to a conference in Baltimore, a National Elementary School Principals Conference. And on the second day, I went to called a breakout session. It was in a big auditorium. There was this tall, skinny guy talking up there. And the topic seemed intriguing to me. It was teaching with poverty in mind. And being from a very high level of poverty in Title I school, I said, this might be something good. It turned out to be a life changer for me. When I listened to this man, Eric Jensen was his name, it was like he was talking about the kids I have in my building and the kids that I know that we have in many other buildings in Norwalk. And why were we missing them? We've been working so hard on our math, so hard on our reading. All those things we kept working on took us just so far. We've kind of hit a plateau. We're just not making that next level. We're not getting every kid to move ahead the way they need to. He seemed to put it in a way that made so much sense and seemed so doable that it just got me to think I was a rookie again. I felt like it's the first year I've ever been teaching or been doing anything. So I came back really enthused, got his book, got his second book, read, talked to my fellow principals. Dr. Krasnavich was the first to jump on board. And right now we have 5 very enthusiastic principals who are going to spend this year really trying to implement everything that we tried to do this year at Kendall. So a lot of what I'm going to talk to you about tonight, we've done this year at Kendall. I have some handouts with some information about how we did with the kids in terms of their achievement, which I think was very encouraging, but their attitude, their ability, and the whole thing is really simple. It's really getting teachers to really understand why kids do what they do and to realize that they can change what they do, and that truly, it sounds as corny as it is, but our SLOs this year were 100% of our kids will beat the benchmark. And we got close. We got close. But anyway, what is brain-based teaching? It's the purposeful engagement of effective strategies derived from principles of cognitive neuroscience. Sounds like a lot of witchcraft. But what we've come to learn in the last 10 years about the brain is absolutely amazing. And there are so many things that are now coming out that help us as educators to teach kids. We get to actually see what the effects are of what we do and what the effects are of what we don't do. So all of this is based on research. None of this is just a theory. A lot of it is in the news everywhere. If you look at Newsweek, U.S. News, Time, all over the place. Everything's about brain. I just got a new offer from the AARP. They have 2 memberships now. And the second membership, it costs you a little bit more money, but you actually get to go and do brain exercises to keep your brain active too. So this is not just for kids. As a matter of fact, any of you hear of Lumosity.com? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, this is basically Lumosity for kids that we got into this year. Now, why are we doing it? It's not just so we all feel good, and we do feel good. Teachers feel better, kids feel better, but we want achievement. We want everybody to achieve. That's the goal. How do we decide what to do? There's a thing called effect sizes, and really what we're trying to look at is what can we do that will actually be a bang for the buck? What'll work? And they're measured, for example, anything 0.4 or below is really small, doesn't have that much effect. You really shouldn't spend your time on it. Now, if you go from 0.4 up to 2.0, then you're talking about strong effect on helping kids, large effect on achievement. That's what you want to focus on. So the first thing is focus where it's going to give you the bang for the buck. Don't do things just because we've always done them. Our criteria in picking things that we were going to focus on this year were it had to be an effect size of 0.5 or better, peer-reviewed in the top 15 of all the studies out there, and the last most important part is it had to be cost-effective. We don't have a lot of money, as you know, so it had to be cheap or free, and we need to be able to do it with having a low to moderate skill set because we're rookies getting into this. So we look for the things that were going to work even though we really weren't quite ready yet. Here are some things that we work on. Just in your own mind, try to rank them. Where do you think are the highest to the lowest impact on student achievement? Student self-assessment, ongoing formative assessment, all the way down to 12 of them down to parent involvement. Well, I'll tell you what. Guess what? They're in the exact order. Student self-assessment is the most powerful thing to change a student, to get achievement. It's number 1 out of these 12. They're all ranked in order. Ongoing formative evaluation, reciprocal teaching, classroom clarity. Number 9 is my favorite, cognitive skill building. Until a little while ago, I didn't even know what that was. Been a lot of PPTs where we talked about cognitive stuff, but I didn't know what it meant. So know what matters. Student prediction of their grades is a 1.44 effect size, number 1. In other words, how a student feels they're going to do. If a student has confidence, and you have to build that confidence in students, but if you can do that, that's very powerful. Just the idea of thinking you can do it. The climate, teacher clarity, how well that teacher presents the material. Reciprocal or peer teaching, feedback. We did a lot of work this year with feedback. Student-teacher relationships, metacognitive strategies. Socioeconomic status is 0.57. It's important, but you know what? It's not the excuse. Just because kids are poor, there are a lot of things we can do to have them achieve. A lot of things that are much more important and much more of an effect on their lives. Sure, poverty affects your life. It affects education, it affects what happens, but it can be overcome. Then there's some interesting ones on the bottom there, which I don't want to get into, like class size, ability grouping, or teacher subject matter knowledge. Those are not that big a deal. So these are the things that we decided we wanted to see. Student engagement, a hope and growth mindset with every teacher, where the teacher believes that every kid can learn. And that sounds corny, sounds simple, but I actually believe that by the end of the year, I had most of my staff believing that and acting on it. Feedback, again, there's a whole, you can get into, I have wonderful handouts on feedback. Relationships. Kids are not going to learn if they don't feel comfortable in the classroom. They're just not going to feel comfortable in the classroom. They need proper, positive relationships. A lot of kids, especially kids from poor families, they get 3 negatives to every positive. That's sort of the way their life is. And that's bad. So in school, they need to have 3 positives for every negative. So we have to reverse the trend. We have to get them a safe place, a place where they feel comfortable and they want to be there and they want to learn. Cognitive skill building, I'll get into a little bit as we move on, but like I said, that was my exciting one. So student engagement, we have lots of studies that talk about it. It's the top 15. What do you get if you have good engagement? Well, it builds the effort of students. It supports the instructional climate in the classroom. It helps attentional focus. It boosts that 3-to-1 ratio, and it reduces behavior issues. If you want kids to behave, engage them. When I was a supervisor, I sat in too many classrooms where 2 or 3 kids sat in the back and slept. And they didn't bother the teacher didn't bother them. They were not engaged. Now, could they have been engaged? Yeah, sure they could have. Here are the factors that we used and 5 schools will use next year in terms of how we're going to get the engagement. Health and nutrition. This started at Jefferson about 4 years ago, Project Lean. I think you probably had reports on it, but last year, Kendall did the same thing. So every 2nd through 4th grader had one lesson a week in nutrition from a licensed nutritionist. Pepperidge Farm footed the bill for everything. So we had 2nd graders to 4th graders talking about nutrition all the time. That kind of spread on to everybody else. And we also had a thing called boot camp in the morning. We had 100 kids show up every morning, almost every morning, to exercise for 45 minutes and then have a healthy breakfast for 15 minutes. Whether it was snowing, you know how cold it was this winter, they came every day, they worked out, and their achievement and their body mass index all improved. Effort and energy. You got to work hard, you got to be strong. Your mindset, you have to believe you can do it. That's a hard one. That's a hard one. We worked on it carefully. We have to build their cognitive capacity. That's their ability to learn. In other words, we can have the best math lesson in the world, but if it's like trying to put 5 pounds of something into a 2-pound bag. You can't do it. You got to make the bag bigger. And that's what building their cognitive capacity does. It gives them the ability to learn what we're doing when we teach them the reading, teach them the math. Relationships we talked about, and stress level. Stress is a killer for everybody, the teachers, the kids. You are going to act very differently if you have stress in your life on a continual basis. Stress once in a while, we all know how to deal with that. That's actually good for us. But constant stress all the time really hurts. And you have to work hard to try to counteract what it does. How can you do it? Well, 10% miscellaneous things, we're not really quite sure, but they are. 30 to 40% you might want to talk about genes. You know, what you inherit, what you got there. But even much of that is modifiable. But the biggest part of a student's achievement is teacher and school quality. It's 50 to 60%. It's the biggest part. So it's the most important part. This is the one about poverty. Poverty is 32nd out of 138 factors. So while it's important, it's not a game changer. You don't have to write schools off or kids off just because you have a high poverty rate. How would your staff rate the strength of each of these things? Well, kids' home life's important, but not the most important. And the school quality is really important, but the most important is the teacher quality. And that's not how much they know the social studies or the history or the language arts. It's how well they know how to work with people and relate to kids. One of the things we try to do every day is build vocabulary, because that's another skill that's very important. These kids don't have the vocabulary that they need. They fall further behind all the time. So we do everything we can all the time to try to build their vocabulary. Lots of times we say a kid is having trouble with comprehension. Well, they'll read a story beautifully, but then in the end they can't tell you what the story was all about. Well, there's two things going on there. There's working memory that they're having a problem with. It's one of the cognitive skills. And the other thing is they read words and pronounce them, but they have no meaning to them. So we need to build their vocabulary and work on their working memory. Feedback, mastery learning, remediation, corrective feedback, all these are part of how a teacher works with a student and when they do things wrong. You can learn a lot from making mistakes. I've learned how to do most everything I can do with a computer by making a mistake. That's the best way to learn, trial and error. Some of the most wealthy people in the world, these people who've made these big companies, they usually can have one or two failures at least before that, and they'll probably have more after that. But they don't let failure get them down. They learn from failure. They learn from making mistakes. We have to make kids not feel bad when they make mistakes, but learn from it. Stick with what works. Don't get fancy. Keep it simple. For reading, it's access early, skill-building interventions over every month and years. Use every high-interest reading, vocabulary, and working memory. For math, it's connect to real-world situations, teach estimation and numeracy, build working memory skills, and build that mindset that math is okay. It's not something special that only a few people can do. Classroom climate, extremely important. And one of those things that we are going to tie very closely into the evaluation system, because we can monitor this. We want to see this when we walk into a classroom. Look at the effect sizes from 0.48 up to 1.42. Teacher with itness, I could spend 2 hours trying to teach you what that is, but it's basically a teacher who's aware of what's going on in the classroom all the time. If you know it down. But it's a scientific term. It's not a cutesy-pootsy. It's really scientific. Just like grit. All the new terms are very interesting. Learning and emotions. They are together. You don't learn without emotions. All emotions bring learning, and back and forth. They're together, about 80% codependent on each other. You can't have one without the other. So you can't forget about the emotional piece of learning, or else it's just not going to work. You just can't the facts. I'm not going to do it. What happens with a student when they're trying to learn is, this gets for scientific, but I try to take out most of the science stuff. But there's a thing called executive function I just wanted to mention here. There are lots of kids that I could describe that the kid who sits in the room and he can't get started. He'll maybe a teacher give directions, and 5 minutes later he comes up to the teacher and goes, what am I supposed to do? Or the teacher comes over to the desk and says, all right, here, just one problem with him, and says, do 2 more, I'll be back in 5 minutes and check up on you. When you come back in 5 minutes, nothing's done. It's not because the kid doesn't want to do it. It's the kid can't actually start. They can't self-monitor. And this is a thing called executive functioning. The good news is it all can be taught. It all can be dealt with. It all can be modified. All these things, inhibition, flexibility, self-control, initiation, organization, reasoning, all that stuff can be taught. And we need to actually teach those things. And then we can expect the result to be different. This is what happens when the teacher insults a kid. And that's when the kid shows up in my office, and I ask the kid, what did you do? What happened? And the kid is in tears, and almost he can't talk. He can't say anything. Now, it's not because he's trying to give me a hard time, or he doesn't. He can't. Literally, his brain shuts down. You know, it's a chemical reaction. His amygdala fires off. It's that threat, you know, a flight or whatever, fight kind of thing happens, and they're done. They can't do anything chemically until that all comes back into balance again. And I see it happen all the time, even with a kindergartner. They're gone, and then you try to teach them. So there's no place for sarcasm, insults, put-downs. That does nothing but get us going the wrong place. Now, the next part, you got to believe it can happen. It's massive, the effect it could have, 1.44, 1.03. You've got to actually try to do something that you really used to feel was impossible. If you don't do that, you're never going to get anywhere. If you're going to accept that 10 or 15% of your kids are not going to learn, and they're just the ones that don't get it, and you're perfectly happy with that, then one, you're in the wrong place, don't come to my building, and you're in the wrong profession, quite honest. All these things go together: cognition, emotion, movement. Moving up around keeps the brain and body sound. It's true. I send my kids out for extra recess. Now, my teachers thought I was a little bit off my game starting this year off, because I was the kind of principal who always said, you can't go anywhere, you can't have an assembly, you can't take a trip unless you can tell me how it ties into CMTs. You have to tie everything into that. And we're going to spend an hour on math every day. We're going to spend, God knows how long I'm reading every day. And I didn't talk about reading or math at all last year. I hate to say it, but I didn't. I talked about all these other things that we just went over tonight. And one of the things I have them do is take extra recess every day. And I want them all to teach math after recess. Because actually, after a PE class, math scores go up. This was a study done about algebra, and the scores went up 20% when the kids had math after gym versus the kids who had math before gym. So it actually helps achievement. So my phys ed teacher truly is an important part of our academic team. Exercise triggers BDNF, I don't know what that means, but they're growth factors. Increases brain cell production. Yes, you know your brain does grow. Even I can grow brain cells. It helps you regulate things. It raises your heart rate, increases. All these things actually help you learn more. So lots of times, we did it at the workshop. Dr. Krasnavich is my motivator in life. But he handled with the workshop we did for the administrators. We get people up. What I'm doing with you, I will never do again with kids or faculty, is just have you sit there and listen to me. We usually would have you up, moving around a little bit, maybe make you a little uncomfortable. We actually had how many administrators dancing the other day? That was we should have had that on videotape.
Should have taped it.
He's pretty good. Music. We use music in our classrooms. So lots of times teachers are playing, there's some kind of music you play when you want kids to be quietly working, and a certain kind of music you play when you want them active and moving around. Now this cognitive skill building, which I keep talking, I delayed it to, now we're at it. But it's a way of increasing a student's capacity to learn. These are tools absolutely necessary for learning. Some kids have them, but a lot of kids don't. And I sit at PPTs. I don't know how many PPTs I sat at, and the psychologist does a report, and the psychologist talks about, well, we tested the child, and their working memory is pretty low. So they're at the 68th percentile in working memory. That report. Then they talk about executive functioning, give a report on that. And then when the meeting was over, we went on and did the same thing we always did with those kids. We tried to teach them, more sight words, give them more vocab, give them more of this. Really, what we needed to do was work on these skills, the executive functioning skills, and the working memory skills. I'll explain a little bit what working memory is in a second. But you can actually work on these things. And we've identified programs we're using at every grade to do it. We do it with the computer mostly, but also the teacher works on it. This slide is one that Jensen showed at one of the workshops I went to. As Dr. Rivera mentioned, I've been to a couple of his workshops now, and I've read everything he's got and bought everything he sells. Which factor, when tested at age 5, is far greater at predicting student success at age 11 than IQ? The answer is not reading scores. It's not motivation level. It's not math scores. It's not attitude. Believe it or not, it's E, working memory. And like I said, until last year, I wouldn't have even known what I was talking about. And it's that powerful. It's free, easy to build, teachable. We got to work on it. If you have poor executive functioning skills, these are all the kinds of things that happen. Does that look like any kids you see at our high schools, or our middle schools, or our elementary schools? It's not their fault. We built cognitive skills using a program called Brainware Safari. It's designed to be used in 3rd grade for like 12 weeks of intensive work, half an hour a day for 12 weeks, and then you're done. You've had your cognitive skills built up. We used it in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade this year because I didn't want my 4th graders and 5th graders to miss it. So we did all 3 grades. Tracy used it in all 3 grades. They got in a little bit later, but got in. And next year, all 5 schools will be using this program with at least 3rd graders, mostly 3rd and 4th. These are the, I have all this in handouts for you, so let me go. But basically, go back one. The students all work on, it's in a game format. So they think they're playing. But if you've done Lumosity, think of Lumosity for kids. It's, but instead of, you know, just the thing coming right at you as it does in Lumosity, this is put in a game format, so there's characters, and they have to do these different skills. And one's called Volcano this, and Aerial that. This happened to be the first kid that finished, so all their marks are there. But we can get a report telling us how many times it took a kid to try it, how many times did they work on each level, which games are they stuck on, which skills are they stuck on. And we actually had some retired teachers they hired as tutors that came around and helped kids too. So we really put a big effort into it. We had the kids loved it. We were supposed to do it for 12 weeks. We ended up doing it all the way till June. We will continue next year doing it with 3rd grade. And then we have another program coming in for reading that builds cognitive skills too. So this was a big help. We have some good results. I put those in there. A lot of kids improved. It was really what I had for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. Since we don't have Common Core yet, we don't have CMTs. To judge kind of how this year played out for 3rd, 4th, and 5th, mostly it was out of this Brainware Safari that gave me some good data on how kids improved in a lot of these important skills. We also got lucky, and I got a grant to do Lumosity. So every one of our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders actually did Lumosity also. So they did both. So they were cognitive skill building all over the place and doing quite a bit of it. And these are just graphs, and you can see that there was a lot of growth for all these kids. So, in conclusion, these are the high return achievement factors that we're all going to focus on. As I said, next year, 5 schools will be doing it. Kendall, Tracy, Brookside, Marvin, Jefferson. They're all at different places. Paul's already done book study with the teachers. This is the new teacher Bible because it gives the teacher everything they need to know how to make this stuff real. And we worked on that all year long. That was our Wednesday morning meetings. Every teacher has the book. And he'll get the nutrition and health also for grade 2 next year. So we'll have a lot of pieces there. Jefferson already had the health and nutrition. They'll be putting in the cognitive skill building. All of us, though, will be working on the teachers and engagement. That's for everybody. That's not and actually, not just the 5 schools. Every school is going to be working on that. But it's exciting. It's exciting. But student engagement, instructional climate with hope and growth mindset, ongoing feedback, relationships, and cognitive skill building. So that's what we're doing. It's not math, it's not reading, but you're not going to do math, and you're not going to do reading. I know you spend a lot of money on a reading program, but I'll tell you this, you'll have the same number of kids failing if we just continue to use a reading program. That reading program isn't going to change anything on its own. You need to do something else to build it up. The math program doesn't do it on its own. You need to get the kids that we miss and the kids that we worry about. And I think this is a way of starting to get at it. And my preliminary results have been very good, and we'll have a lot more results as we move along. Thank you.
Any questions for Tony before I make some concluding remarks?
Mr. Kasimis?
Anything to Bridgeton Middle Schools?
Actually, all of this works at middle and high school. The book on the right would be the book that we're getting for the secondary schools. And look, a lot of Lynn, what do you call it? PB? DVIS? Yeah. That's all fits in. I mean, what's happening is all the pieces are coming together, but there's a lot of things we've been doing that sort of were in it. What this does is it clarifies it, and I think it gives the teachers a real clear blueprint of what their role in all of it is. But there's a lot of things. Yeah, this is not an elementary thing. As a matter of fact, when you go to hear Jensen, he doesn't talk about elementary. It's not just elementary at all.
Ms. Mosby?
Yeah, you're going to be sharing, giving us handouts on this information or the presentation.
Yeah, there's the one handout has all the results that we got this year at Kendall from doing it. The second handout is to explain executive functioning and working memory. Because and this is all about the cognitive software that we use, Brainware, Safari, and the one we're going to use next year also. We got the one for next year free too.
And if we're interested in this entire presentation, can we get a copy of that as well?
I can send it to you, sure.
Yeah, thank you. You can send it to the entire board. That would be great. Thank you.
Ms. Keese, you had a question?
Yeah, Tony, that was a great question that Mr. Kasimis asked. Are we working with our middle schools and high school teachers on this?
On our administrative day,
right.
I didn't do this presentation because this was more like what we're just doing in the 5 schools, but we did a whole presentation on engagement, which is about 2 hours. And that was for everybody, and there's a lot of, I tell you, that was amazing. I hadn't seen them as excited as I saw them about it. Because they all saw things that they were doing, but ways to really make it pull that much faster. So yeah, absolutely. Everyone, next we're going to have, one thing is I have one of the, what do you call those elementary assistant principals now?
Curriculum instructor,
site directors. One of the site directors, Mrs. Lamandola, went for the training. So she's going to make sure she trains the other site directors at the elementary level for that. And then I think I've talked Dr. Moore and I've talked Suzanne Koroshetz into being the champions at each of their levels. So we do have a plan, and we are talking about, this is an opportunity to do something we have not been able to do in this district.
Can I ask one other question?
Also, I'm sorry.
Is it possible, like, for maybe some board members or all of us or a few to maybe visit or actually see the presentation? I mean, I know you've done this, but just to kind of be part of it, because it sounds fascinating.
Well, you're welcome to come over to school and see in action anytime you want. But you want that, the other presentation on engagement?
At some point, I mean, I think, yeah.
I can send it to you. I mean, you see the slides. I don't know. Slides by themselves, what they'll tell you, but.
Okay. Thank you.
What Tony has shared, I'm sorry.
One more question?
Just one more question. Are you changing the school day to fit all this in?
No. First of all, teachers doing the right thing by kids doesn't take extra time. The only thing that takes a little bit of extra time is the cognitive skill building and the recess. And to be quite honest with you, I'll steal 10 or 15 minutes from math. I mean, the other thing we've learned, and that all the research says, is, you know, here's how I taught math. I was a middle school math teacher. I did a lesson for 30 minutes, and then I did a few problems with the kids, and then I gave them their homework and let them start it in class, and then the next day they came in, I went over their homework, and I did another 30-minute lesson. Kids have the attention span equal to about their age. So when you start, like a fifth grade teachers think they have to get them ready for middle school. I don't know what they think happens up there. But they talk to those kids for 2 hours. I mean, I go in to observe a lesson and I want to cry. We shortening everything down. We actually think less is more. That we're going to get more. Because look, if you're talking to kids and they don't understand what you're talking about because they don't have the cognitive capacity, or they don't have the levels of the way that they're feeling in the day, you're not going to get anywhere anyway. So you can spend all the time you want. Time's not the answer. And like I said, I was the most time on task person you ever want to meet. But that just took us so far. So this is a way of, you know, giving up a little bit to get a lot more.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rivas?
Yes, will the children be assessed as to how they learn individually per classroom? Because I think that, I don't know if that's also included with the cognitive skill building, because you're helping them to have an ability to learn, but how do you determine how each child individually would be learning? So then you see how you're building the capacity. by having, I don't know, if an assessment could be done of each classroom per child. Would the teacher be doing that? Like administer a test, whether, how each child is learning at what level and how they learn?
I'll let Tony respond to the different formative assessments that he may be using in schools. But remember, we're also going to have, across the system, assessments that we're going to be administering on a quarterly basis with every student. So we are actually going to be tracking the progress of every single one of our children with the assessments that are part of another presentation which lays that out. Tony, you want to?
Yeah, in terms of the cognitive skills, the program itself monitors where they are and moves them ahead as they need to move ahead. And so you can see, a teacher can get every week they can go in and see what the kid did, where they are, where they're struggling, where they need extra work. So yes, and then actually next year, because the Dalio Foundation has been very nice to me in helping me out a little bit, but one of the things that they want from us always is data. So next year we're going to do some actual measuring of executive functioning and working memory. You can actually do that with a test, before and after. We did, if you look at the research on that I passed out too, we saw the best year we've ever had in K-3 literacy. Our PALS testing, which we do 3 times a year, we've been doing it since 2007. By the way, I had the largest class sizes in K1-2 we've ever had. In spite of all those negative things, we had the best scores we've ever had. In kindergarten, I think we had I think there was one child who didn't meet the reading benchmark in kindergarten. We never did that. I think there were like 2 in first grade, and we had a few more in third grade, but most of those kids were kids that weren't with us since kindergarten. And so, and of the kids that didn't make it, a lot of them were severely handicapped and made a lot of growth. Just to give you just an off example, we had one student came to us from another school last year, came supposedly to have a one-on-one aid. So I guess they thought the kid was in trouble, and he did get some aid help, but he ended up actually meeting the benchmark in this PALS testing by the end of the year. That one blew my mind. But I had teachers coming in actually showing off the kids that before they might have written off. So there's a whole lot about just believing and just doing it. So you can't always measure that, you know, Nadalia, you can't always measure the belief. But the most important thing is the teachers to think they actually can get 100% of the kids to do it. That's the key. It's not really nothing else.
Okay, thank you.
Just to sort
Thanks,
of
Tony.
bring this to, thank you, Tony. To bring this to closure, what we're talking about really is rebuilding Norwalk Public Schools. It's getting those standards and systems in place. It's paying attention to how we hold people accountable. And if you remember, back in the K-5 literacy program, we said really clearly up front, it's not just going to be buying the book. It's going to be helping teachers understand how to really intervene, to understand what intervention is all about, and to support them in that effort. It's getting at their belief systems. It's creating that kind of culture and environment that we're talking about here today. It's all part of a major plan to fundamentally rebuild our public school system and what we should be getting in terms of results. So it's a work in progress. Obviously, there's a lot to do. As you can see, we left on your table just a record of all of the professional learning that our staff are going to be engaged in. They're organized by goal and they're organized by month. So you can have a sense of everything that we're paying attention to, from Common Core, state standards, and reading and math, to some of the other work that we know we have to do with our staff. My last point on this is that this is very akin, when we talk about student engagement here, it's very akin to what our high schools are doing around personalized learning, the work that they're doing that's being funded by Nellie Mae. Thank you for that, and I'll close. Turn it back over.
Thank you, Dr. Rivera. A question from Ms. Mosby?
Dr. Rivera?
Yes.
Can we get a copy of your presentation as well?
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I say one other thing? Because I forgot, and it's critically important. Knowing your students and connecting to your students means connecting to families and getting families more connected. And I can't say enough how much more we need to do to get parents connected and supporting their kids and being partners with us. And that means changing how we engage parents, how we welcome parents in our schools, how we receive parents, how we communicate with parents. That is critically important. And I just wanted you to know that there are other initiatives going on right now where, we're looking again at Brookside and Tracy for piloting some programs, and we've got a major program called Parents for Literacy for Children that is underway, where we're actually providing training modules and training and support for our parents as well. So that's another key element to this. Thank you. And I'll make sure we get the presentation.
Thank you.
All right. Ms. Rivas?
Yes, is this a professional plan available for the public as well, if they wanted to view this?
Sure, it's available. It's a document we're using internally, and I just thought I'd make copies to distribute to you for your information tonight, but we can certainly make it available.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right, we'll move on to item 5. Well, actually, we don't have a consent calendar listed here. I didn't even notice that. All right, item 5.1, approval of personnel. There's only one item in here recommended for appointment of an art teacher. Chair would entertain a motion to approve. Mr. Kasimis moves. Is there a second? Second? Second. Ms. Keys. Ms. Rivas. Any discussion? Yes.
We have a really kind of disorganized system with art teachers where they're working half-time here, quarter-time here, and moving around. I talked to Tony Dodona about it, and it definitely impacted the Wolf Pit teacher. And I'm just wondering, I never heard, how was that finally handled, Tony, in terms of how are we going to split up these hours, and are we still going to have teachers floating all over the city?
Well, since we don't have one teacher per elementary school, we do it based on numbers, and when you and I had that discussion, what we had left out after talking to the principal was the artistically talented program, so we did not have a teacher there for maybe teacher 26 at one school, so we had to make sure a point eight in order to cover the artistically talented. So as the numbers come in, I will look at every school because numbers are fluctuating. Try to do that.
So what you're saying is the smallest elementary school, which barely has 300 kids, gets a 0.8, but then Jefferson, which has over 600 kids, only has a 1.0? Is that right?
We're looking at that now, yes. And
But this teacher is...
It's also tied into, as I said, giving teachers their prep periods also. So when these classes are, when these students are with these teachers, that's when these teachers get their prep period. So it isn't as simple as that.
Okay, but the fact is this teacher getting hired at a 1.0?
She's getting hired as a 0.8, and what we did with the 0.2, we upped the teacher at Norwalk School to a 0.87.
Okay.
To give Norwalk more time, instead of having it be 0.6 at one school, 0.2 at another. We're trying to pull them all together so they're not going to school for just one day.
Right.
And that's the problem.
But still, Rowayton School would have a 0.87 even though they have almost 500
No,
students.
they have another teacher there too.
Okay. Okay.
And we're going to revamp that. We're looking at the numbers as they come in to see how we can change that. These numbers are going, Wolf's numbers just dropped, and other schools' numbers dropped, so the numbers are going like this. So as we look at those, we'll reassign teachers.
Right, but every other elementary school has a 1.0.
Right.
So it's really doesn't seem very logical, but so be it.
Okay, any other discussion? No? Okay, all in favor of the appointment, please indicate. Unanimous. Thank you.
I didn't vote for it.
I'm sorry, I apologize. No? One no vote. Okay, I apologize. Did not see that hand. All right. Next item is approval of budget transfers. There's a memo in the file on the over $10,000 transfers, and the transfers are listed. Chair would entertain a motion to approve the transfers. Mr. Kasimis moves. Is there a second? Ms. Mosby seconds. Discussion?
I have some questions on a couple of the transfers.
Mr. Rudel, you want to come up?
I've noticed that we have quite a bit on for transferring from 690 other supplies and materials into the 730 instructional equipment, and we have about six items that total 12,895, and then we have another line item from out of salary and workshop and going to instruction equipment for 21,580. So it's totaling 34,475 approximately. I'm just trying to get a explanation, the costs of where this.
So the accounts for the supplies are essentially saved money throughout the year, and they're going into an instructional equipment account to fund the purchase of equipment, essentially instruments for music programs.
Now, at the bottom, the memo says Norwalk High School, band equipment, Norwalk High School.
Correct.
Is all of these, is all of this is being allocated towards Norwalk High School?
Correct.
Is that for new equipment or replacement?
It's for new instruments.
Okay. So the other high school, Brian McMahon, are they going to receive the same type of?
We were actually looking at both schools. We were going to make an assessment, and we had that funding. We did get a request. We can't fulfill all the needs that Norwalk High has. We were well aware of the issue of equity and wanted to make sure that we reached out to both marching bands, but we wanted to provide some support in terms of their instrument replacement.
Okay, so Brian McMahon is on the radar for getting new equipment as well. All right, then there's another item here that you have 4 items. Although we said 10,000, but I believe that at one of the meetings we asked for explanations on, I guess a report from the superintendent on these items that's under, because if you add up these items, it comes to 8,700. So, and I believe we had at one of our last meetings that we're trying to monitor these little small expenditures because they do add up, because these total 8,700. If you could give us an explanation or something, you can send it to us so we don't take up too much time tonight on these little items.
Sure.
Like 4,000, 2,200, 2,400.
You finished?
Yeah.
Ms. Rivas.
Yes. Well, I'm a little concerned because during the presentation it was said that school safety still remains a concern. So I have a concern that you have object code 490, project code 60. You're transferring security services. You're transferring $40,000 into natural gas, and the amounts of money that are being transferred from rentals, I would assume that the money should, the 40,000 should not be coming from security services. And what exactly is security services?
Security services isn't anything that is funded to provide security guards or anything at that school. It's an account used to fund any repairs associated with the alarms at the individual buildings within the schools. So we set aside a certain amount of money to have a company that monitors our alarms, as well as maintenance of the alarms in case the alarm might break or need to be repaired. We spent a significant amount of money last year repairing alarms, and as a result, we did not have to spend as much money to repair the alarms.
Okay, so then it would only refer to alarms?
Correct.
So security services has nothing to do with cameras, monitoring
No.
cameras? Okay, what is monitoring cameras? What area would that be?
Cameras are a capital item.
Okay, so it wouldn't be security. So then security is alarms, so all alarms are functioning. Okay. Okay, so I also, you're transferring $35,000 from life safety systems?
Correct.
Is that the AED?
No, those
What
are
is
not
that?
AEDs. AEDs were an equipment purchase, which we have made. The life safety is another facility maintenance account.
Of what? What exactly is this account, life safety system? What is it used for?
They are for repairs of whether it be speakers or whether it be kind of like flashing lights for when a door is ajar. Again, it's for repairs of items that are fixtures on the buildings.
Okay, so life safety
So
equipment.
they are not any items such as like AEDs that would be needed in case of a child or an adult who is injured. It's not anything that is related to having a security guard on campus or anything like that.
So it's just labeled life safety systems just for a speaker? A speaker and what?
It's the general object code description that we're required to have when we submit the EDO one.
Okay, so then the object is coming from is, the 492 is the life safety? Is that a particular school?
It's all the schools.
It's all the schools, so that's one big, so then
one
after
account,
we do
so
this
it's one.
transfer, there is no longer any money in this account?
No, there would be.
There would be?
Yes.
What is the balance to date of this account once the transfer is?
I don't have the exact number in front of me, but I can give it to you. But this results in the end of the fiscal year. So the end of the fiscal year was June 30th. So any new expenses that would happen, so if there was a repair that had to go out to an alarm or any type of system in July or August, that expense would be, expensed in the new year.
Okay, but you stated that alarms was for security system and life safety systems is different from that.
Correct.
Okay, but you just said life safety systems
Right, either.
is also
whether-
alarms?
No, whether it's the alarm account that you were talking about prior or whether it's this account, they're all facility-related items.
Okay, I would like to have, I don't know if the other board members would also like, I would like to have everything that's classified on the life safety systems and security services. And also, what is the coding for the money that's involved with the monitoring of the schools, the exit doors? My understanding, there's been a couple of cameras that haven't been working, let's say over 5 years, and they're pointing to the ground, to the ceiling, outside in the tree, I don't know, the sky, and it hasn't been functioning properly. So I don't want any money to be taken out of these accounts that need to repair these urgent things that are safety issues. So besides the safety systems and the security services, anything having to do with safety, I would like to see the object codes and what our balance is there. And also, what is the AED under? And do we have an AED in each building?
The AEDs were ordered. They are in the process of being installed in each building. Those were purchased out of a non-instructional equipment account.
Non-instructional equipment, not for safety? Not under health?
Because it's an equipment. Correct.
Okay, so there's no coding for safety equipment?
No.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions, concerns? Okay.
Oh, yeah, yes, one last one.
Ms. Rivas.
Yes. Under rentals, these rentals are for what?
These are rentals that we pay for the portables throughout the district. So in some instances, we pay monthly payments for portables that we rent, and then at some point in time, we purchase the portables, so there's no longer a rental payment that has to be made. So those go based on the life of the lease from whenever that was either leased or purchased. So these are savings associated with payment stops for portables because the lease has expired and we own them now.
Okay, so then the total so far is $120,000 on the rentals. Is there anything else left on the rental account?
Yeah, the remaining balance in the account is to pay the other portables that still have rental payments.
Are portables still being used?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? All right, hearing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of approving the transfers, please indicate. Unanimous. Thank you. Next is item 3, authorize the superintendent to 1, hire certified staff, non-administrative during the summer months, and 2, enter into renewal or new contractual agreements for exempt staff. Within Board of Education, approved budget parameters and hiring policies and positions are listed. Is there a motion on this item? Mr. Chairmonte moves. Is there a second? Mr. Barbas seconds. Is there discussion? I'm sorry. Rosemary.
In the motion, I'm looking at this, and the part one, the board has, it has been something that we have followed as far as I can remember, and authorizing the superintendent to hire during the summer. Part two, that's something that's been introduced, that's new. This board has not had that brought to them or discussed, so I guess I need someone to fill us in on the change in process. Normally, the contractual agreements go through the negotiation committee with the superintendent. So there has been a change in this process. So that's something that, Dr. Rivera, if you'd like to let us know.
Sure. Well, we could actually separate them out. It's not, makes no difference to me. The thought here was simply that during the summer months, as well as with the organization that was approved 2 weeks ago, that I would be able to hire people once we actually have gone through, as we shared at the Finance Committee meeting, additional financial information and personnel and salary information, as well as copies of actual contracts that were sent to you on Friday. But it makes no difference to me. We can separate them out if that's a desire.
Mr. Kucinich?
May I make an amendment?
Certainly.
On number 2, that we approve the first 3 since we know who they are, and wait until we have candidates and see them for the remaining 3.
Okay. Is there a second for that motion?
Okay, what, can you repeat the motion?
Sure. That we, on point number 2, 3.2, that we go ahead and approve the first 3, Director of Labor Relations part-time, Chief Business and Finance Officer, and Chief Communications Officer, since we know who they are. And then the other 3, wait until Dr. Rivera has time to post and get candidates.
Is there a second to the motion?
But okay.
Is there a second?
No.
We need to follow procedure. Is there a second for the motion? Okay, motion is seconded. Is there a motion to amend? Discussion. Ms. Mosby.
You want to separate it for, it will be another line item stating that you want those 3 to be put up for approval.
Just those 3.
Just those 3,
yes.
And we're going to separate, because I know Ms. Murray did say something about the first item, number I, and number 1, and the higher certified staff, and that was always the board thing. So we're going to break it down to like 3 type of, I'm just trying to get some clarification, because if we do.
Well, let me clarify the motion. The motion as it stands to amend would be to adopt part 1, and instead of adopting what is currently part 2, it would simply be to approve tonight the Director of Labor Relations, Chief Business Finance Officer, Chief Communications Officer, and all other positions would have to come back to the board at a later date. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, correct. That's my.
Okay. And after you put it through, we can have a discussion on that, right?
Right now.
It's right now.
Good. All right. Well,
Amendment's on the floor.
Yeah, I mean, I want to discuss the contracts and the 3 that you just mentioned. And I'm not sure if I should discuss it now or after the amendment, but I will.
No, I think it's proper to discuss it at this amendment,
Okay,
because
great.
it calls for approving them.
Okay, good, because I want to sit here and discuss and ask, have these positions been posted?
No. There are individuals who have been fulfilling more than 50% of the duties. The intent was to revamp their roles and responsibilities, as I shared, both in writing and at the last board meeting, some of the enhanced duties that they would have, and to then amend contracts for those individuals. There is, however, you are correct, the Director of Labor Relations would in fact be a new position.
Right, so
That's
that,
right.
with
That's
that
right.
one position in
That's
general. You know, and there's an item on here where, language in here with the number 4 termination, And that language in there is where, and I need clarification.
Let me ask Lee Palmer. Lee, if you could come forward, please.
What page?
What page is it?
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you? Sure, okay, hold on. It's on page 2 of 4. Yeah, 2 of 4. Number 4. Termination D. That language right there, is that a new language that, you're putting into just these contracts? Because I have a little concern about this language, that prior to terminating this agreement, the board will give written notice to whatever position advising that termination of this agreement is under consideration and stating the reason therefore. Now, is this the type of language that everyone is exposed to, or is this just with this here? Because what it does is that, from what my understanding, and I need clarification, is that how on the budget cycle, because as I'm not sure if you're aware, since you're new, with the budget cycle, we don't know basically what is going to be allocated to us. So we don't really know about the cuts. And here, this is almost saying that before we can even think about touching these positions, they get the opportunity to ask for a hearing, and then they come in, and then that's up to either a board or the chairperson can assign 3 board members to just hear this, and then if they decide that there's some reason that they can keep them, they'll keep them. But then it puts the burden on all the others, because then if that's, and then it says that they can get an attorney, so that's more cost to us in a sense, because if, just to try to, keep their job, where the opportunity for everyone else is not there. So I'm concerned about that language right there, where they can come in, and it's almost, again, because the fact that it is the upper top positions, and for them to have that safety, to me it seems like a safety net, that they're okay. So when it comes down to the budget cycle of cuts, well, this type of language, how would that affect the budget cuts? Is that exempt from the budget cuts, or just during any time of normal termination?
No. Are you referring to the employment agreement itself?
I'm referring to page 2, the termination.
The termination clause in the employment agreement.
And again, this is just basically template language. It exists in all of the previous agreements or contracts with administrators, and they're year-to-year contracts. This is only for that specific year. In this case, it would be 2014, 2015. These are not multi-year contracts, they're one-year contracts.
Well, I don't recall seeing that this language in other contracts. If you can provide contracts that states this,
yes,
that would be nice. Because I don't recall seeing this in other contracts, and I am concerned again with the fact that if there's a budget, and we have to sit here and do cuts, that this here protects these positions. Yeah, and that they're okay for coming in and trying to at least plead their case, and it's not being equitable or fair to all others who can't come in and do the same.
And again, I would just reiterate that these are year-to-year contracts, not multi-year contracts, and so the contract itself runs from July 1st through June 30th. That would be the term of the contract, and this language is not atypical, but I'd be happy to show you where the district has used this language in the past.
And the job description, there's another item on here, that number 5, where they're asking about the work, it's asking about their work ability. I've never seen that before, and is this some type of new language or new something new that you're putting in force?
Can you point out where that is?
It's page 4 of everyone's job description.
Yes.
The last page, and it says working conditions, physical and mental requirements. and it gives a list of what, you know, you're supposed to be. My concern.
Oh, she's in the job descriptions.
Yeah.
Oh, not the contracts, right.
My concern is that, you know, the American, dealing with, although Norwalk Public School is an equal opportunity employer, but I have some concerns dealing with American Disability Act. And for us to go there and just put it out here that in order to, because especially it's on the other two positions that we're not going to talk about, that we're going to table tonight, but it's just that just having this type of out there with a job requirement, I'm concerned is that this is going to be part of posting of our jobs that's going forward or now. And if that's the case, then we are definitely stepping in violation of American, you know, Disability Act, because it's kind of like discriminating against handicap or people with disability, and that's why I'm not sure if there's something that was just pulled out, because I've never seen this before either.
It may be new to the district, I'm not sure, but certainly in my experience, it is common language. In fact, it's encouraged under ADA because it's important that folks know what the essential job functions are and what the physical and mental requirements of the job are, because for exactly that reason, because we have to be transparent about the essential job functions, the knowledge, skills, and abilities, and the physical and mental requirements to do the job. And this, again, is standard in most, or certainly all of the job descriptions that I've seen written within the last 10 or so years.
Yeah, these are administrative jobs, and the experience that I've had, we've had people in the past that have had some kind of disability. Going back to, we had an HR person, Lula Bosco, that was, and so we did not, these requirements was not, there. So I think that it does kind of like discriminate against people applying, especially if you're posting and you're sitting there if they have a handicap. And we're supposed to be open to that. We're not supposed to sit here and sit there and discourage people from applying for the job, because just because someone can't walk correctly or whatever, that doesn't mean that they don't have the function, ability to sit here and perform the job mentally, and so, I'm concerned that with this type of language, it leaves us open, and I just, and with the posting of this, it leaves us open, and then that goes back again to posting. Are we posting these jobs?
And again, not to belabor the point, but again, under the ADA, we are required to do this. We have to be transparent about what the qualifications are, what the essential job functions are. We do obviously have to be able to make reasonable accommodations, and that is something that we are required to do. And so if somebody can perform the essential job functions with reasonable accommodation, there certainly would not be a bar to employment. But again, we are also obligated in being transparent about what all of the requirements of the position are, and they vary. Obviously, heavy construction jobs require more physicality and more physical abilities, and the frequency of a lot of those items is at the right side of that column. Whereas other positions that are more sedentary, you'll see a lot of those functions in terms of lifting, pushing, things of that nature in the left column, because it may not require that a lot of the time. Same thing in terms of lifting weights. Some positions only require 10 or less pounds, some are 20. Again, heavy construction positions, you have to be able to move 50, sometimes 100 pounds. And again, it's based on the nature of the position itself. So and each of those does change depending on the nature of the job itself.
I understand, depending on the nature of the job. But again, like I'm saying, is that it does leave us open with this type of attachment with these job description and the job descriptions, because it's from it leaves us open, and especially with the ADA and it does give the appearance that, you know, it discriminates against people, you know, who has disability. And since we are an equal, you know, employment, equal opportunity employer, you would think that we would have, the transparency would be more open to bring people in, just so that they can, you know, come in and apply for the jobs once they're posted. And it doesn't be, and it's not held against them that they don't meet two or three of these requirements on here. Because on here, it seems that they have to meet all these requirements, but someone could be lacking one or two of those requirements, and I don't feel comfortable having them feel discouraged from trying to at least apply, and then have that held against them when it comes time to select someone to fill these positions.
Mr. Kasimis.
Can I make an amendment to my amendment?
Certainly, it's your motion.
Can we post the first position in Director of Labor Relations part-time? And then just approve the next two.
Okay. Is there a second to that changed amendment?
I still have a question on the contract.
We haven't stopped the debate. He's changing his amendment.
I'm just changing my.
Is there a second to that change?
Okay.
Anybody change?
Okay.
Second? All right, I'll second it. All right, so the motion is now to approve item 1 and item 2 to post Director of Labor Relations and approve the 2 contracts for Chief Business and Chief Communications Officer. Discussion continues. Any discussion? And this is on the amendment.
On the amendment, yeah.
Which
we can still go into.
For clarification,
Yes.
since I brought this up.
Yeah.
So part 2 of 5.3 will now be removed to actually only cover the Chief Business and Finance Officer and the Chief Communications Officer. Is that what we're?
Those are the only 2 that will be
Correct,
voted
yes.
on tonight, correct?
The others will be posted.
So this process will continue to be in place or not? Because that's really the other part of my concern, because it's placed here, there was no conversation with the board, and it appeared here. So where does this go? Where does this take us now?
Depends on how the board votes.
My
If the
amendment
vote
is to post
approves
the
if the amendment is approved, then the only actions that we're taking tonight are approving sub 1 and approving Chief Business Officer and Chief Communications.
Sub 1, what did you say?
That would be the only action we were taking tonight.
These 2 positions?
Yes.
Okay, so more discussion? Ms.
Yeah,
Mosby?
so I just want to make sure that I'm clear. The sub 1 will be considered a separate vote from the sub 2, or we're going to have to vote everything all together?
It's a combined motion as it is right now.
So in a sense, it has to be voted separately.
The amendment is to separate.
No.
No,
No.
there's been no one has proposed an amendment to separate. That could be proposed, but that's not been done yet.
So Ms. Can you state your amendment, please? I thought you
Oh,
were
sure.
separating it.
So we're not.
Sure. Here's my amendment, is to approve 3.I, which is to hire give them the authority to hire certified staff, which we've done in the past, as teachers. And on 3.2I, just approve Chief Business Finance Officer and Chief Communications Officer. That's it. That's just
Yeah, that's fine.
Good, okay.
All right. Thank you.
Ms. Rivas?
Okay. The contracts, where is me? Where is it?
Mr. Palmer, could you rejoin us, please?
Yes. The contracts, who drew these contracts? Who wrote the contracts?
I prepared them.
You prepared them. And this is a template that we had, or is this something that came from another location?
It's a template that we've used in the past, correct?
In Norwalk Public Schools?
Yes.
Okay, so when did the board agree to have one-year contracts or contracts? For the for the duration of 1 year?
My understanding is a one-year
All of our
contract.
contracts.
With administrators are 1 year, is that any contract longer than that would be an exception and would be the exception rather than the rule. Typically, they are
Mr. Woodall's
1 year
current contract
contracts.
is 1 year. Ms. Williams' current contract is 1 year. They expire today. And the form that you see in front of you for Rule and Williams is word for word exactly the same as the contracts we approved with them last year, except for the salary because of the change in the job description.
Okay, so then what we received before was something new that was done? It has nothing to do with these two contracts?
I don't know of, again, personally, I've only been here a couple weeks, but I know of no contracts for administrators that are more than 1 year.
In the year that I've been here, the only contracts that we've advanced for exempt group staff are all just 1 year contracts.
Okay, I just was not aware of if the board voted on this or anything like that. I just since the conversation was about the contracts, I just want to make sure that everything that's written in these contracts, because we are responsible, because it's the Board of Education, it says we the board, and we shall do this, and we the board. So we need to know exactly what's in each section of each contract for a discussion, not like the day before or whatever it is, send it in an email, because we need to have a discussion as to what we're going to have to put in contracts.
Again, because it's a template, the thing that would be different, obviously, depending on the position, would be the salary. But the contracts themselves are templates that existed prior to my coming on board, and all of the ones that you see before you reflect that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on the amendment? Again, this is on the amendment. All right, hearing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of approving Mr. Kasimis's amendment, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Unanimous. Okay. So we're now to the main motion, which has been amended to say exactly what Mr. Kasimis moved. So by approving this, we would be authorizing the superintendent to hire certified staff, non-administrative, during the summer months, as we have done on multiple other occasions. And we would be approving the contracts in the packet with the Chief Business and Finance Officer, Mr. Rudel, 1-year contract, and the Chief Communications Officer, Ms. Williams, 1-year contract. Is there any other discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of approving the amended motion, please indicate. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Is that the same thing we just
did? Yeah, we just did the whole thing.
Yeah, we're just following the normal Robert's rules. Okay, it's unanimous. Motion's approved. All right, next item is committee and representative reports. We'll start with Ms. Murray for Finance Committee.
Yes. The Finance Committee met for the month of June. And one of the things that I just think that we might need to look at as the chairs of these committees is that we have quite a few cancellations. We did not have a quorum for the Finance Committee meeting, but we had public there, we had other board members there. So we certainly went straight through with information reports. But we need to look and take a look at the cancellations that we're doing now on our committee committees that we have, our standing committees, that's what I should call them, our standing committees. So we move forward. There was it was a strong dialogue. Also, it kind of revealed some things that our superintendent spoke to us about in the process, which, once again, can be, I think, more to the board and the superintendent's roles that we need to have a discussion at another time. And it's not really sitting in a committee, but it's something that you can do in a workshop. And that was something that came out of that meeting. But I do know that we have to look closely, and the public is looking at us on the cancellation of meetings. We need to take a look at that. The next Finance Committee meeting is July 23rd, which I do not intend to cancel.
Okay. Mr. Kasimis, any reports?
Sure. Athletics, I found out today that it was definite Mr. Monas has retired and moved on as athletic director from Norwalk High School. So I just want to say he's done a wonderful job, and we thank him for his service. Norwalk Facilities, I had an email, I can't get it on my phone, but had an email from Ellen Lowe Narragansett is going on as scheduled, and it looks like we probably will be open in September.
Cool.
With the new wing. In Rowayton, I believe they have, it's fenced off, is that correct, Mike?
Yep.
They put the fence up, and they're getting ready for logistics for September, I believe. So that's...
Okay, thank you. Ms. Keys. Policy.
Policy. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, July 29th, and that's it to report.
Okay. Mr. Barbas, negotiations personnel.
On negotiations, there was supposed to be a food service meeting on June 26th, but that was canceled. It has yet to be rescheduled. On NFEP, we have work still to do, but we have not scheduled a new date, a coming date. With the national NFT and NASA, both the clock started on June 19th, and both of these contracts need to be negotiated by September 2nd, or they will then, the arbitration process will start. I did reach out yesterday to the committee, sent them the proposals that NPS staff have worked on, and I'm waiting for feedback from the members of the committee on these proposals.
Okay.
On, just to follow up on what I already said with Royden School, the fencing's gone up. They had to take out part of the playground. They're really prepping the entire site, and they have started the environmental remediation, which are the PCBs and the caulk. Children are not allowed in the building whatsoever. It's a EPA regulation. Adults are allowed to be in there. Obviously, there aren't many people there, but that work is underway.
Okay, good. Mr. Germani, report.
We have a meeting this coming week, Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what he said. I didn't hear what.
He said he's going to have a meeting, the committee this coming week.
Thursday.
Okay, thank you. All right, board member announcements. Any announcements? Ms. Keys?
Start that.
I'm sorry, Ms. Mosby?
Yeah, it's housekeeping item again. Can I, I'm not sure who's, it might be you, Ralph, that's over the emails. Are you, okay. I'm just, can you at least check them, because a few of us have not been receiving emails, and a few people have come to us and said that they've sent emails, and we just received something that kind of like took forever to get to us. So can you just make sure that we're getting our emails, because we like to respond, once we get them.
Yeah, if I could just ask that you email as well, so that you can tell the person like what those are, so I can
And it's not just me, it's a couple of us, so it's, if you just check on all emails to make sure. Thank you.
All right. More? Go ahead.
Yeah, and one more thing. Dr. Rivera?
Yes.
When you get a chance, I know you're busy and everything, but you did state at the last meeting that you were going to give us a full report on Brady.
Yes.
And a report, on P-Tech, the financials, all that stuff. So if you could, and I know that you said it was going to be done at this meeting here, but if you can get us that would be great.
Sure. I don't recall committing to this particular meeting, but I do recall committing that we would complete an annual report for Briggs. So we'll make sure that gets done, and I know there's lots of good information for P-Tech that we could be ready. Given the timing, I'd like to suggest that we look at perhaps in that third week of July, give us some time to get people time to complete the reports that need to be completed.
Okay. Any other comments? Ms. Rivas?
I'm just a little concerned with public comments. When a public comment was made that the board did not want to hear a complaint of a citizen. I have no knowledge of that, and I am part of the board, and I would not refuse something to hear a complaint from any citizen in Norwalk, because everyone has the right to complain and bring it to the board level. Anyone in the community, according to our policy, is what our policy states. And then to hear someone that had a citizen complaint and then was told that the board will not hear his complaint or her complaint, I think it's not correct, and I was not part of that decision. So I am not being informed as to the request of complaints from the citizens of Norwalk and taxpayers, because it's our responsibility to follow our own policy. So if someone is refused an audience with the board, then let that individual themselves say they do not want to hear the complaint, because I do not want my name put in that as saying the board does not want to hear someone's complaint. So it would be the individuals that do not want to hear, who are members of the board, the complaint. So I think that's very important when someone speaks and responds to any citizen or any employee or anyone in Norwalk that has to do with the Board of Education, then I do not want someone to speak to me, speak for me if I have no knowledge of it. So I think that that's very important, that we follow our own policies and listen to complaints. And that's a concern. And I would like to hear what the complaints have been, and for someone to inform me, preferably by phone, because email won't do it for me. So I really want to be updated as to what has been going on with this.
Okay. Any other comments? Ms. Keys?
Marty, you want to go?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Ladies first.
We're working our way around. Go ahead.
Okay, just a personal announcement. I will not be at the next board meeting. I'm going to be leading a team of 15 people from my church to Guatemala on a mission trip, and we're going to be building 2, maybe 3 homes for a couple families down there.
Excellent.
If you don't see me, that's where I'm at.
All right. Now, Ms. Keys.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention that Newark High School has a pilot program. It's a freshman academy where children from middle school that are entering 9th grade. I believe there's about 82 participants. I've heard a lot of positive feedback. They do a lot of academics, but also some free time as well. And I'm curious to know at the end, it's a 5-week program, full-time, how it turns out. But I think it's a great introduction for a lot of our middle school children to make the transition from middle school to high school, which is very different. I know that we offer it at Brian McMahon, but this is the first year that we're offering it at Newark High School. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Barbers.
I have 2 envelopes for you. I said I was going to mail them, but I never made it to the post office, so I'm going to hand it before you leave. I want to make sure I give them to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Anybody else? Ms. Mosby.
You know, going back to what Mr. Rivas said about public comments, as a board, can we come up with a system or something that addresses people when they come to, for public comment? I mean, just any type of acknowledgement, because I do get feedback that people come to the mic, they talk about different issues, but they don't get any kind of, I guess, courtesy, whether or not we can give them what they're asking for. Is just that acknowledging that, yes, we heard you, and we're going to, look into it, or we're going to get back to you. Something, I'm just saying that people in general, because we've been having a lot of people. I mean, there was someone earlier that spoke about, his position. And if we can have some kind of feedback that can go back to these people, because they do take the time to come out and speak. And I think that it would go a long way, especially in building a relationship with the board, that we're open to the community and public. So if we can, come together and try to come up with some way of trying to respond back to when people come and have public comments.
Okay. Ms. Rivas.
Yes. We used to allow the public as well. We used to say if there's anyone who would like to speak that has not had an opportunity to sign up, we would allow this, and it's just not being done anymore. And also, on another note, when these board meetings are televised, I had asked, is there a way that we can have like, maybe different languages on the bottom of the screen or something like that with the closed captioning that has different languages, the board meetings that are taped?
Yeah,
And
I'm trying to get a little
we-
more pricing on that. I've got a few quotes that are pretty exorbitant, anywhere to potentially $15 a minute to have that service.
So there's nothing that could be done in-house, or perhaps speak to Cablevision about that, or how, how does?
Yeah, we'll keep looking into it. Right now, the regular price for just closed captioning, to consider that like an automated service was around $8 a minute. To do the separate language was around 15. Yeah, it's expensive to have a service do that. We don't have the capacity to do that internally.
Okay, how about our board packets? Can they be available in different languages?
That this would also be a huge expense with that, and then there'd be a timing of getting it done, because there's a lot of information.
Okay, policies
Yeah.
that are online, or policies that are online?
I don't know, our policies, our board policies right now are not translated into Spanish, I don't believe. We could get an estimate, a cost estimate of what it would cost to do something like that. Do it?
No, what I
It's
mean.
online, they can translate it on Google.
On the meeting.
Yeah.
Here.
He says online, they can translate it on Google.
But I do have to make sure the PDFs translate. Yeah, I would have to look, everything else translates, I have to just make sure the PDFs actually translate as well.
Okay.
That's the site does.
Okay, thank you. I believe that we should try to figure out more ways, or maybe have one board meeting and discuss how we can better service the community. With a diverse community, we have to figure out how to communicate better during our meetings, and how we can have more outreach to the people on how they can be aware of what we actually do here, of what we're doing, and it's very important. And like we were we said earlier with Dr. Rivera's presentation, it's about attitude, it's about culture, it's about getting along with everyone. So maybe think of better ways of improving this from us, including I also asked about the translators that we have. I had a couple of people that wanted to come to the meeting tonight because they wanted to hear about the new plans that they had, but there's no one to translate. I'm not speaking about Spanish only, so in case that's what was assumed before. But we need someone French Creole. We need Spanish. We need to be able to provide, because we are a service for the public. So we have, I don't know, we had boxes of these hand translators that as we speak, someone can speak, and if a public person comes, what do? You turn them away? I'm sorry, you should have gave us a warning before you came. I don't think that we should be in that type of position. So that's all I'd like to say. So thank you.
Ms. Murray.
Yes, some of our schools do a good job at that, Dr. Vera, and maybe possibly you can get some insight from some of the schools that I've been to their silent auctions, a lot of their events, and they do well, and they have the attitude that they want their whole community to be involved in what they're doing. So I think
there have been
progressive more than we're here at this table. So that's why I'm thinking that we might be able to take a page out of their book.
Well, actually, when there are events that I go into the community, like we did with a major parent event and elsewhere, we actually do arrange for, at least in one particular language, Spanish, which happens to be the dominant one in the cases that we went, where there's an actual translator, and what we distribute to families are the headsets, and they can actually sit wherever they want, and they can actually get the translated presentation as they're sitting there. So we do that. The question, I think, is a board question. If that's something you want here at these board meetings, then that is something that we can look into and just be aware of what it would take to make that happen, that's all.
Anything else?
Okay, well, we'll proceed to the next item on the agenda, which is the approval of minutes of June 17, 2014. Is there a motion to approve? Ms. Keys moves, Barbara seconds. Any changes, corrections? Ms. Mosby?
On page 4 of 11, it's under approval of policy 9130.1 bylaws of the board. The statement here says, Ms. Moulton stated that she was pleased to see the Diversity Hiring Committee as separate under the Human Relations. What I actually said was I was pleased to see the diversity hiring language taken out. It's a standalone committee and reporting to the full board. And it has been worked on recently, planned, updated, and need to be moved forward. That's what I said. Because it doesn't, you know, so, yeah, that's what I said. And then on page 5 of 11, it says under motion, it says Ms. Rivas second. It's the first at the top, under Ms. Rivas moved to amend the proposed bylaws, section 4, negotiation personnel committee, to move the last 2 bullet points to the policy committee. The person who second was Ms. Mosby.
Okay.
And then on page 8 of 11, where it says, motion failed with 3 votes in favor, Mosby, Murray, and Rivas, and 5 opposed, Barbara, Chiramonte, Kissimus, Keys, and Lyons, and no abstentions. I believe Artie, Kissimus, you abstained with that, on that vote.
I don't think I did. What is this, the reorg?
There's a motion to table the reorg plan.
Right, the motion with the salary included.
I don't think I abstained.
On the tape, you did.
I did?
Mm-hmm. I sat there and I watched the tape. Couple times.
Can the secretary check the tape on that for that vote?
Can you check that? And thank you. Yep.
Any other corrections, changes? Mr. Barbas?
On page 8, under negotiations committee, that some of that union got mixed backwards in the minutes. So the first one says NFEP, that should be food services. And then in the next sentence, food services should read NFEP.
Okay.
And ESG should be struck because ESG is done.
Okay. All right. Any other changes, corrections? All right. Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes as amended, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Opposed? None. Abstentions? 2. Okay. 7 to 2. They are approved as amended. There being no further business before the board, Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Kissimas, second. Mr. Chiramonte, all in favor? Meeting is adjourned. Only sign stuff.